What's going on YouTube? It's been a bit, but I was just taking a bit of a break. I've been doing a lot of work still on just the players for this draft class. I got a lot of good stuff coming. I mean, there's a lot of prospects. And I'm doing a 2023 mock soon, so we'll get our first look on guys from next year and stuff. So I got a lot of cool stuff coming that I think will be worth the wait. But yeah, so moving back in though, we are going to be taking a look at the draft from 5 years ago now with the 2017 draft. And this was a draft that it had a lot of great talent, but there were some teams that they took some players a bit early. But starting off with number one, though, the Cleveland Browns took Myles Garrett, and I give this an A. There were definitely better players to take, considering there were guys like Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in this class. However, Myles Garrett has been an insanely good pick. He's pretty much year in, year out a defensive player of the year candidate, and he's just been great for them. He's put up some great stats. He's arguably been the best edge in football, since he's come into the league. And so, yeah, I mean, it didn't overall help them at first with their talent, but the Browns more than certainly won a few games this year simply just because of Myles Garrett. So I'm going to give it an A. He was a fantastic pickup for the Browns at number one. At number two, the Bears took not a great player in Mitch Trubisky. Now, he had a solid career in Chicago. He truly was not that bad of a quarterback. He's just not that guy that was going to take you to that next level, and that was pretty evident, when they had such a great defense, especially in 2018, but he just wasn't able to do it. And, I mean, that Bears team with Mahomes, that was the year Mahomes won MVP, was when the Bears were that good, So who knows? Maybe that Bears team could have won the Super Bowl if they would have taken themselves a Deshaun Watson or a Patrick Mahomes. And so, yeah, Mitch Trubisky was not that bad. He wasn't a D player. I think he was more of a C player, in my opinion. However, when you were picked above guys like Watson and Mahomes, and you're not even on the team anymore, that's definitely not a good pickup. So he gave him a few good years in Chicago, but overall, it wasn't a very good pick, so I give it a D. Number three, the 49ers took a pretty big bust for the most part with Solomon Thomas. This is just a guy that, you're expecting to come in and make a major impact, picking him at 3 overall for you, and to just really not have much, production. His stats of his entire career with the 49ers is worse than some players' regular season stats. He's currently having his quote best year with the Raiders. I mean, he actually had a pretty decent year, but when you're drafting a guy at number 3, you're expecting him to have a pretty big impact, and he just simply never did that. So this is definitely one of the worst busts of the last 5 years for the 49ers. And again, you could have just had so many other great players at this pick. Then we have the Jaguars, who took Leonard Fournette, number 4 overall. And look, again, similar to Mitch Trubisky, Leonard Fournette was not a horrible pick. He looked, he was not LSU Fournette. That's just pretty clear that he just didn't seem to have that fire in him once he got to the NFL. And, he's almost kind of regained it a bit playing with the Buccaneers. He played great for him, right? And that's fine and dandy. With Jacksonville, he never was that 4th overall pick, right? I mean, running backs, it's arguable whether they even belong in the first round in the first place. When you're picking him 4 overall, and yeah, he gave you a solid 3 years. I mean, is it worth the 4th pick when you could have had so many other great players? No, it's definitely not. So it's tough because he wasn't that bad of a player, but he was not worth the pick at all. Just didn't do much for you. You didn't even get anything out of him. You simply cut him. So all in all, was not a very good pick here for the Jaguars. Number 5, we have the Titans, who took Corey Davis. And, Corey Davis is tough because he just never really produced, and then had one really good year on a contract year. Titans didn't resign him, and now he kind of looks like his old self in New York. So it's kind of tough because it's a guy that has shown some nice talent at times, but again, is he worth the 5th overall pick? I don't think there's any way that anyone can say that he is. And even that contract year of his where he was his best season wasn't even a 1,000-yard season, So it's just when you draft a guy, again, number 5 overall, you're expecting him to make a much bigger impact than just, 500, maybe 700 yards and a few touchdowns. He's a solid receiver that I think still has some nice potential in him, but he's just not been worth that pick. Again, he simply left. I don't know if they even got a compensational pick out of him, so it just was not a good pickup for the Titans. Number 6, we had Jamal Adams to the Jets, and it's, again, another tough one. I mean, there's a lot of tough talent here because Jamal Adams is a good safety. He is not a great safety, and he's never been good in coverage, and he just looks to be getting worse, honestly. So that's the tough part, right? Is because he played really nice for the Jets. I mean, he was still a top safety in the league for a while, and he gave him some good play. And probably the best thing out of the trade is that they ended up getting 2 first-round picks out of him, one of which is going to be a top 10 pick this year. So obviously it depends on who they end up getting with those picks, but in my opinion, when you draft a safety, that does still give you some pretty solid play, even if not helping you win. And then you get a top 10 pick plus another first round out of him. In the end, like, I think it was a fine pick for the Jets. Would I have rather than taken many other players? Sure, that's why it's a B minus. But despite Adams not necessarily being great for them, not even being with them right now, I think it still was a good pick overall, just because of what they ended up getting out of him. Number 7, we have the Chargers with Mike Williams. And, similar to Corey Davis, like, he's a guy that he kind of struggles with consistency mainly. And even in terms of just a whole season, like, he started out really good this season and then really tampered off towards the second half. And that's just kind of because Mike Williams is a one-dimensional player. I said down there, a one-trick pony. He's a guy that's really good at going up and get it. He's a great contested catcher. But that's literally just all he's good at. I mean, there's a reason that he has a lot of touchdowns, right? I mean, when he's playing good, he's a really good receiver and hard to stop. But it's like teams really just figure out how to stop him. And he'll likely be gone from the Chargers after this year. I don't know what kind of compensational pick they would get out of him, if they are going to get any. So, it's tough because he's had some good moments, very good moments, and he's had some good seasons, but he was really just not consistent. And for number 7 overall, again, you're taking a guy to be a consistent elite player for you, and that's just not what Mike Williams has been. So I give it a C+ for the Chargers here. Yeah, you could have made worse picks, but could have definitely made a better one as well. Number 8, we have the Panthers with Christian McCaffrey, and some people might not like this grade. I give it a C+. It is tough because on the one hand, Christian McCaffrey, he started out with a couple good seasons, and then 2019, he was fantastic, right? First ever 1,000-yard rushing and receiving back ever, right? Well, yeah, that's what first ever means. That's great. And then he got hurt last season, was out for the majority of the season, and then this season he came back, he was looking healthy, he looked good when he played, and then he was hurt again. And what's even more for me is the fact that the Panthers have ended up with the same amount of wins, whether he's been on or off the field. So, yeah, he's a great running back, and he brings a lot more than just running, despite being a running back. But at the same time, when he also seems to be really hurt a lot recently, and overall, he just hasn't contributed to more wins for the team. Yeah, he's a great player, but am I going to give this guy $16 million a year for 4 more years? Not really. I mean, and so yeah, it's tough, right? Because he's a very talented guy, but he just doesn't equate to wins. He seems to be injury prone, and at the end of the day, he's really only had one great season. So when he plays, sure, but overall, McCaffrey, it's a C+ to me. He just hasn't helped the Panthers, and overall, just not the best pick to me. And what's an even worse pick is the Bengals at number 9 taking John Ross III, arguably the biggest draft bust of the last 10 years. I mean, it's pretty insane just that this guy just never panned out. Yeah, he had injuries, but even when he was healthy, he just didn't look good. Over the course of 3 or 4 years to not even equate to 1,000 yards when you're the 9th overall pick, that's not good, and I think that's part of the reason why I say a guy like Tyreek Hill, right? People weren't very high on him because I think there was, after John Ross, it was just a bit of I don't think Tyreek Hill was, I think he was picked 2016, I want to say, but it's just like these speed guys, they're not looked at very highly, and really teams just weren't that interested in getting a speed guy. Especially after John Ross, until Tyreek Hill really broke into what he is today. And I understand teams' hesitance on that because John Ross is a prime example that, yeah, you can have some elite traits, but that does not guarantee you anything in the NFL. And John Ross, yeah, he was a fast dude. He still is. He's still a fast guy. he just doesn't bring anything other than that to the table. So that's the reason why he's currently a depth receiver on the Giants. He's just not anything. So it's definitely one of the worst busts of the last decade, and for me, it's a horrible pick. So yeah, the Bengals could have had a bunch of great players here, and they went with John Ross, so it's an F minus to me. Number 10, you know what was a great pick? Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you've heard of this guy, but arguably has had the best start to a career ever. I mean, I get that he just lost yesterday to the Bengals, but think about this, right? In the 4 years that he started, his first year, he won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. His second year, he won the Super Bowl. His third year, he lost in the Super Bowl. In his fourth year, he lost in his fourth consecutive home championship game. Like, I don't care what you have to say about that he's a supposed choker. Like, I don't get what besides yesterday makes him a, quote, choker. But Patrick Mahomes is just insane, and I shouldn't have to say that, but apparently I need to since a lot of people are starting to hate on him already, which is going to come when you're so good. But at the end of the day, like, the fact that this guy is on the trajectory he is, let's say he does win a Super Bowl, every 4 years, and he lasts a good 15 years, that's still 3 or 4 Super Bowls, which is more than, I mean, any quarterback but Tom Brady can say, pretty much, or, at least tie a few guys. And like the stats is incredible, and just even looking at Patrick Mahomes play, I mean, he's arguably the most talented maybe player that the NFL or even sports has ever seen. He's just on another level. And so, 10th overall, like, getting a guy that's just been so freaking incredible, it's an A++. You literally just cannot get a better pick unless you got this guy in like the 6th round. But he's a better athlete than Brady. Like, yeah, obviously he's not as successful as him right now, whatever. He's easily a better quarterback than any other guy in the game right now, maybe even Aaron Rodgers. So for me, A++, shouldn't have to explain it, but I did. Number 11, the Saints took Marshawn Lattimore, who, he's been good. He's been good for the most part. He's made the Pro Bowl 4 times. He was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's been great. He's been consistent, and he's probably had his best year as a starter this year. So, yeah, I mean, there's just not much to really knock on him. I think the reason he's probably a B+ instead of an A is just because, like, he wasn't, like, great at the start of his career, right? Like, obviously he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, but he wasn't, like, that type of guy that just came out and awed people. And even now, I don't think he's quite a top 10 corner yet. But he is, he's still one of the best in the game, though. He's a consistent young corner. Like I said, only getting better. So it was a good pick overall for the Saints here. There's better players you could have taken, but it was a good pick. Number 12, I have Deshaun Watson, and I'm giving him an A ? Now, as the football player, Deshaun Watson's easily been an A. I mean, stats-wise, he's been incredible. The eye test, he's easily one of the most, talented quarterbacks in the league right now. When he's played, he's been elite. And even on, a 3-win Texans squad, he still was putting up MVP-like numbers. When he did have a team, they were in contention for a Super Bowl, So, as the player, he's great. Fantastic, right? The issue is obviously what's going on with him right now and the legal issues. I don't want to speak and get involved with all that right now. If they're true, it's horrible. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's not a great pick because you picked a rapist. If it's not true, then, it sucks that he's being accused of this stuff if he didn't do it. But also the fact that, if you're the Texans, it's kind of dependent on what happens there because Deshaun Watson's not playing another snap for the Texans. I think that's pretty clear at this point. He's made that clear. I mean, even if they hire Brian Flores, he's not going to play for the Texans again. Whether that means he plays for another team or not remains to be seen. Now, the thing is if he does get traded, then it probably stays an A or A+ pick for the Texans because you got some great years out of him, and then you're getting a boatload of draft capital and maybe some good young players too, right? If he doesn't get traded because these things are true, you're not getting anything for him. And instead you drafted a bad guy who sure gave you some good years, but you never won anything with. So that's why I give it an A ? I think as the player, he's definitely been an A-level player. He's made a great impact. And if you're able to get trade out of him, great, right? I mean, overall, great. If you're not able to get anything out of him, that's probably more of like a C for me because, obviously just not drafting a good guy. Sure, he was great on the field and gave you some competition, but you just don't want to draft those types of guys. So it's tough for Deshaun Watson, but I'm giving him a question mark for right now. Then at 13, we had Hassan Reddick, who went to Arizona. And, he was never anything special. I think he was fine, fine for the pick. He was really good in the last year with his Arizona, but other than that, just was a fine, backer that kind of turned into an edge. And now he's playing with the Panthers and he's really playing good for them. So, that's cool and all, but it's not for the Cardinals. So, yeah, you got a few good years out of him. You did get one really good year. Did he really ever contribute to much? Not really, to be honest. So it's a B for me. You could have definitely taken worse. You also could have taken better, though. Number 14, we have Derek Barnett. And yeah, this is what I mean by you could have taken worse. Barnett's not horrible, but it's just like another case of you're taking a guy at 14 overall to be an impact player when guys like TJ Watt were available. It's just not that great of a pick. We're not even sure if he's going to be in Philadelphia next year. He's a solid rotation piece. He's just simply not worth the pick. There's not much else to say other than that. Number 15, Malik Hooker to the Colts. And another case where it's just like he was solid for a few years, but just simply not worth the pick. He's not with Indianapolis anymore. He just was simply never that player that you took at 15 to be an elite player. So, he was solid for a few years, but just nothing else other than that. So it's kind of the same case. You could have done better. Such as taking Marlon Humphrey, who, with the Ravens has been a near elite corner. He's pretty much been on an elite level since he entered the league. And I would say he's been getting better, but then I feel like this year, he was going up and up. And then this year was kind of a down for me, because not only did he get hurt, obviously, but when he was healthy at the start of the season, he was not playing very good ball. Now, the Ravens gave him a big old contract, $19.5 million for 5 more years, $19.5 million a year for 5 more years. That's a big contract for a corner, but he really has looked the part other than this year. And even then, it's not like he was like some horrible corner, but otherwise, he's been elite. It was a great pickup for the Ravens in the middle of the first. So for me, it's an A-. Not many other better players you could have gone with at the time. Number 17, the Washington, at the time, Redskins took Jonathan Allen. And yeah, Jonathan Allen's been really good for him. Similar case to Marlon Humphrey, where he's been pretty near elite for most of his career. He started off a little slow. He's not a guy that has the best stats in the world, right? So he doesn't get selected to Pro Bowls that often. But I think he's definitely been playing more of an elite level recently. He's definitely probably a top 5 interior guy to me. They gave him a big old contract as well that's definitely deserved. He's a great player. B+, again, just not many better players you could have taken at the time. TJ Watt's available. You could have taken him, so it's not quite an A for me. But he's been a pretty good player overall for Washington, though. Number 18, we have the Titans again, who took Adoree Jackson. And it's just kind of sad when at number 18 and at number, 5, you could have had 2 really good players in a very talented class. And instead you took Corey Davis and Adoree Jackson. Not very good. Adoree, again, was fine for a few years, but it's just at 18, you're taking a guy to be a franchise player. There's plenty of people who've been taken at 18 who've turned into elite players, and Adoree Jackson is just not that. He's with the Giants right now. He's still a fine corner, but he's just never lived up to that. So same case, Derek Barnett, you could have just done better. Number 19, the Buccaneers took O.J. Howard, who, I'm not really getting the idea of taking a tight end in the first unless you know he's going to be elite. Like a TJ Hawkinson or a Kyle Pitts. Those are guys you can look at and be like, oh, these guys are going to be great in the NFL, right? I'd take a first-round pick on these guys. O.J. Howard just never seemed like that guy to me. And as another tight end in this class as well. I didn't quite get the idea behind drafting him. If you would have drafted O.J. Howard, say, in the 3rd, maybe even late 2nd, it's a good pick, right? Because he's given you some solid stats and some solid play there. He doesn't really even play for him. He's kind of just turned into their tight end 3 at this point with Gronk and Brait on the team. yeah, it's just when you're taking a guy at 19, like I've said with a lot of these guys, you're expecting something and he just simply didn't deliver. So for me, it wasn't quite an F pick just because he's not a bad player, but it's just not worth the pick. So a D minus to me. Number 20, the Broncos took Garrett Bowles. And this, this was a weird pick at the time because I think when he was drafted, I want to say he was 26. And so, for a guy like that, that's older coming out, you'd expect him to start a bit more ready for the NFL. And the weird thing with Bowles is that he always had it all. He had great size. He was one of the most athletic tackles in the NFL, right? He's a big dude that knew how to block well, but there was just something wrong with his mentality that he just was always holding, and that was really what brought him down. And I've seen different stuff. Obviously having Mike Munchak there helps a ton in any offensive lineman's development. I've also seen some stuff that like he has some extreme ADHD, and so that he had trouble in camp and stuff and just learning. But since last year, when he finally, he got Mike Munchak for a couple years, there's a little fun story on like how he uses this pen to help him focus and stuff. Since then, he's been one of the best tackles in the league. Last year especially was elite. He was actually graded as one of the highest football players in the league, at least by PFF. I know people don't necessarily like them all the time, but he wasn't just the highest graded offensive lineman. He was one of the highest graded players. He played pretty fantastically. Now, unfortunately, this year he started out really poorly. It almost looked like he was back to that 2017-18 self. And then luckily in the second half, he kind of got back to the form of last year. So Bulls is a bit tough, right? Because he's healthy. He plays all the time. And when he's good, he's really great. But when he really gets out of that mindset, he just struggles. So overall, I think he's been a good pick because he's been a solid tackle even when, even when he's having the holding issues, he's still a solid tackle. But when he's playing great, he's playing elite. So I give it a B for the Broncos here. There was a better tackle to take. 21, we have the Lions who took tre'davius. And just, again, a guy that you take at 21, expecting to be something, just never ended up being a good player. Now he's just depth on the Jets. Just not much else to say. It's just a miss of talent, honestly, for the Lions, which isn't very uncommon. But I give it a D minus. 22, the Dolphins took Charles Harris, and I can't give it quite like a normal F because he did give some solid production for the most part. But he just was never great. He was never good, even. And what's weird is, he's having his best year of his career. Or he had his best year of his career with the Lions, where he actually was a really good player this year. Not really good, but he was definitely better compared to his time in Miami. He basically put up like half his production of his entire career before that point this year. So, he gave something. Like, I think in comparison to like a Solomon Thomas, right? Like, he at least gave some decent production. Just not a guy you take at 22 and just never turned into much. Not worth the pick, so it's an F plus to me. Number 23, similar to OJ Howard with Evan Ingram. I mean, he started out solid. He just seems to be getting worse and worse, though. It's like every year he just puts up less production, and he's at his worst year so far this year on a contract year. He's given some nice production, but he's just not worth the pick. And so I give it a D for that reason. I've never been a big fan of Evan Ingram, but he just seems to be getting worse. So, and to be honest, I kind of forgot he existed this year. Number 24, we have the Raiders who took Garyon Conley. And yeah, again, just one of the worst busts in recent memory. Just never was good. He played for a few years, but he was just a bad corner. And they traded him to the Texans, and they had him for like a bit, and he's just not played since because the team's not even wanted to give him an opportunity. I don't know if maybe something happened to him, but like he's just not played, and he was never good when he did. So yeah, for me, Garyon Conley, again, one of the worst busts in recent memory. 24 as an F minus. 25 is going to be Jabril Peppers to the Browns. Now, with the Browns, it's kind of difficult because he played pretty solid for his first couple years there. He was nothing special. He's probably more of like a D plus player, right? And then they went and traded him for Odell. So it's kind of tough because on paper, being able to trade this guy part of a package to get, at the time, one of the more talented receivers in the game. Great. Except Odell just never ended up being anything for Cleveland. And we're seeing that that was actually a Cleveland issue, not an Odell issue. He's been great with the Giants the last few years, and it seems like he keeps getting better as he goes along. He got hurt this year, but he really has been improving. As far as the Browns, I give it a C minus just because he was a solid player for a couple years. He helped get Odell, which in hindsight wasn't the best move, but also, would I rather have Odell or Jabril Peppers? I mean, if I'm the Browns, probably Jabril. If I'm any other team, I want OBJ. So I give it a C plus or a C minus overall. 26, the Falcons took DeCards McKinley, and if you're noticing that the edges were very, very hit or miss in this draft, again, just not worth the pick. He started off pretty solid, actually. He gave Atlanta a good couple years of production, and then he just kind of dropped off. He's now kind of just moving around the league a bit. He was on I want to say he was on 4 rosters this year, but he failed 2 physicals, and then I want to say it was the Texans that cut him or something. He's just moving around. He can't find a home. He's not that good. I don't know what happened. He started out solid, but he's just not played well since. So, yeah, he gave a couple years of solid production, just not worth the pick, so another D for me. 27, we have Tre'Davius White, and after going on all these Ds and Fs and Cs and stuff, we get back to an A again with Tre'Davius White at 27, who, in my opinion, was probably the best corner of the class. He's been elite pretty much since entering the league. He puts up great stats. He's absolutely shut down. He got himself a big contract that he definitely deserves, especially picking at number 27. I don't think there's a better player you could have gone with in this situation. I mean, you can argue Ramczyk or TJ Watt, but I'm not going to discredit you for taking such a great player at 27. So for me, this was an A-plus pick. The Bills definitely knocked this one out of the park. Tre'Davious White has been a great, great corner for them. So it was a great, great pick. 28, we go back to the Fs with an F- in Taco Charlton to Dallas. Yeah, this guy was just a major bust. He only spent a couple years in Dallas, and he's been on 4 teams since then, and he's currently just a depth pass rusher for the Steelers. He might not even be on the roster anymore. Yeah, it's just another case of just majorly misevaluating talent. Just not worth the pick. Never did anything for you. It's an F-. This class had some really talented players. We'll show you that later, but it had some bad busts as well. 29, the Browns with their second pick. After picking Jabril Peppers, picked up David Njoku, who, again, just similar to OJ Howard and Evan Ingram. Sure, he was a solid tight end, and he did actually have one good year, but besides that, he's just not been worth the pick. And right now, he's not even their starting tight end. So, yeah, when he's not even starting for you, and he had one good year, but just nothing else, and it's just not worth the pick. I give it a D-, and I think out of him, Ingram, and OJ Howard, I'd probably take him last, to be honest. So, yeah, just was not a great pick for the Browns. Yeah. Actually, no, this was their third pick because they had Myles Garrett, obviously. So, Myles Garrett, great pick. The rest, not very good. Number 30, TJ Watt, A+. I mean, what else can you say about this guy? He's led the league in sacks, since his second year. He's made the Pro Bowl his last 4 years. He's been elite, just plain and simple elite. There's nothing else to say. He's probably the defensive player of the year this year. He's been the forefront of just an elite. I mean, I keep saying that word, but there's just not another word to describe a guy as good as TJ Watt. And I'm not someone that likes to just look at the fact that he has a bunch of sacks and call him so good, but there's a reason why he has so many sacks. He's just really freaking good. And he keeps this up another 5 years or so, he's going to be in, conversation for one of the most dominant players of all time. Honestly, that's how good this guy is. So at number 30, when many other teams could have taken this guy, you get an absolute steal at 30 in TJ Watt. That's an A+ pick for me. It's not A++ because he hasn't helped you win a Super Bowl like Mahomes, but it's about the best pick you can take. Actually, at this point, it is the best pick you can take. So, yeah, I have TJ Watt as an A+ pick. And then going back to the F-, we have Reuben Foster for the 49ers. Yeah, this is bad for the Niners. You take Solomon Thomas and then you take Reuben Foster. That's just tough. I mean, he was injured a lot at the start of his career, and even when he was healthy, he just did not look good. Then he decided to go become a criminal. I think there was something about like him with weed at one point. I think there was something about abuse. I don't remember exactly what, but he had like multiple charges on him for stuff. He hasn't even played since 2018, so yeah, it's the 31st pick, but at the end of the day, you take a first rounder to be a great player, and you have a second shot at somebody here. I mean, heck, they could have paired, oh crap, what's his name? Oh, I'm forgetting his name. Who was the Joe Staley? You could have paired Joe Staley with Ryan Ramczyk, and instead you took Reuben Foster. You could have had Deshaun Watson. You could have had Patrick Mahomes, TJ Watt. You could have had any of those players. You take Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. Those are some big L's to take. It's an F minus. He played 2 injured seasons and hasn't even played since for anybody. It's just an F minus. It's a horror. It's again one of the worst draft busts of the last 5 years. It was just a horrible pick. What wasn't a horrible pick was the final pick of the first round in Ryan Ramczyk, who, similar to tre'davius White, there's just not a better player you could have taken at this point. For a team that needed offensive line help, they got themselves an elite offensive lineman, you know? He's not been like the healthiest, but missing 9 games also isn't like, doesn't mean you're super unhealthy. So he's really not been that unhealthy. He's just been elite. You know, he's been elite since entering the league. He's consistently one of the best tackles, especially right tackles. And in my opinion, I think he's currently the best right tackle in the NFL. It's close with him and Tristan Wirfs, but I would take Ramczyk, I think, right now if I wanted somebody like right now. Maybe Wirfs will be better for the future, but, you know, I think he's the best right now. He's just incredible. So it was a fantastic pick for the Saints. Literally not a better player you could have had. A+ pick for the Saints. And then last, over this draft, we're going to take a look at the rest of the guys picked. You know, there's some good players here. You know, Cam Robinson has been a solid starter for the Jaguars. Budda Baker has been really good. Same with Marcus May. Dalvin Cook's been fantastic for the Vikings. Marcus Williams, you know, another great Saints pick. Joe Mixon's been fantastic. Dalvin Tomlinson, just a notable guy. Zach Cunningham, Chidobe Awuzie, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deion Dawkins. Taylor Moton's been a great tackle for the Panthers. Alvin Kamara, again, with these Saints. I mean, the Saints had an incredible 2017 draft. You know, Kamara, Marcus Williams, Ryan Ramczyk. It's just, yeah, it's a great draft. Cooper Kupp, maybe the offensive player of the year this year. Chris Godwin's been great. Kareem Hunt, besides a few kicking incidents, has been pretty good. Shaquille Griffin, Kenny Golladay, when healthy, has been great. Rasul Douglas has been pretty good recently. Jonnu Smith, Trey Hendrickson's been great recently. Another great Saints pick. James Conner, you know, had a great year this year with the Cardinals, even though he was drafted by the Steelers. Eddie Jackson, Carl Lawson, Tariq Cohen for the Bears, Jamal Williams, Marlon Mack. A lot of good running backs in this class. George Kittle, of course, was a steal in the 5th round by the 49ers. Desmond King, Jake Elliott, Jayon Brown, Anthony Walker, Matt Milano, some good linebackers there. Aaron Jones, again, great running backs. Chuck Clark, Chase Roullier, one of the best centers in the league right now. Zane Gonzalez, solid kicker. Isaac Rochelle, day in, day out. Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate. Harrison Butker, great kicker. Tim and then some undrafted free agents here. I mean, Tim Patrick and Patrick Ricard, both free agents for the Ravens. They didn't keep Tim Patrick, but Tim Patrick currently one of the better receivers in the league right now. Tanyan was, you know, great. Taysom Hill was a bit of a gem, at least as far as like undrafted free agency. Austin Eckler has been great this year. Kenny Moore, probably the best slot corner in the NFL right now. And then Younghoe Koo, who was actually an undrafted free agent for the Chargers as well as Eckler. So they could have had Younghoe. But either way, though, this draft had some incredible talent from start to finish. There were a lot of big busts, but there were also some extremely good players taken in this draft. But that is a look back on the 2017 draft. So how did your team's draft? Did you get any late round gems? How did the first round go for you? Let me know down in the comments below. Who do you wish your player would, or who do you wish your team would have taken? But that's going to be the video for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I got a position ranking coming soon, probably after the Senior Bowl. 2023 mock, more 2022 mocks, definitely a lot more of those as draft season kicks off. I've been, let me see, in the wild card round, I was 5-1, and then in the divisional round, I was 7-3, and then in the championships, I got both wrong, so 7-5. Super Bowl 56, we got the Bengals and Rams. I'll break that down deeper in a video, probably on Super Bowl weekend. As of right now, I think I'm leaning towards the Rams, but I've also been doubting the Bengals a lot this postseason, so who knows? But yeah, it's going to be a great Super Bowl either way. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.